The president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, has not yet reviewed the United States peace plan, and allegedly it is Ukraine that is disrupting the peace talks, since Vladimir Putin has already agreed to Washington's proposal. That's how harshly Donald Trump criticized the president of Ukraine today, stating that peace has not yet been established precisely because of Ukraine's position. Moreover, Trump is clearly upset that Ukrainians did not appreciate the efforts of his special envoy, Kostyv Vitkov, who is actively trying to serve the interests of the Kremlin. But here's a shock for you. Zelensky's team confirmed the president of Ukraine has not seen all the peace plan amendments that Rustem Umerov and Hanatov discussed for 3 days with Vitkov and Kushner in Miami. There are reasons for that, as announced today by the Secretary of the National Security Council. It is known that today Zelensky arrived in London for a meeting with European partners, and that's exactly where Umerov will bring them. All the details of the negotiations with the Americans about peace in Ukraine, which Zelensky and the Europeans will discuss right away. Nevertheless, Zelensky has already admitted that the negotiations are at a complete deadlock because the United States, Russia, and Ukraine have completely different views on the territorial issue. Meanwhile, Western analysts are already openly stating that Trump's intervention in Russia's war against Ukraine only continues and intensifies it. Hello friends, I'm Pechiy, let's discuss this together. But before we start, I ask you to like this episode, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to write a detailed comment under this episode. Also subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechiy News, the link is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so financially with any donation or subscription using the links and details in the description of this video. I would appreciate any support from you. So, United States President Donald Trump harshly criticized Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, once again accusing him that supposedly Ukraine does not want peace and is disrupting the negotiations. But, according to him, Saint Vladimir Putin has long been ready for peace and wants to sign a peace agreement as soon as possible. The head of the White House, Donald Trump, stated that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky supposedly still hasn't reviewed the United States peace plan, implying that he is not interested in it. When asked about his next step regarding negotiations between Russia and Ukraine after last week's contacts, Trump replied that the Americans had spoken with both the head of the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin, and Volodymyr Zelensky. Quote, and here's an interesting point. That is, Trump is already starting to play at trying to create division within Volodymyr Zelensky's team, hinting that Merov Ignatov really liked the peace plan and they would sign it with the Russians even today. But Volodymyr Zelensky himself is personally resisting and refuses to move toward peace. It's just that Zelensky is the only obstacle to everything. And Russian propaganda is already actively using this, spreading such messages even in the Ukrainian information space. At the same time, according to Donald Trump, Russia, on the contrary, supports his peace plan. Quote, well, it is known that Zelensky is currently in London for talks with European partners, after which he will visit Brussels. In London, Zelensky will meet United Kingdom Prime Minister Keir Starmer, French President Emmanuel Macron, and German Chancellor Friedrich Merz. A joint video call is planned with all the leaders of the European Union, all European countries, and the NATO Secretary General. And importantly, the Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, Rustem Umerov, is also arriving in the capital of the United Kingdom. He will be the one to tell Zelensky and all Europeans about the peace plan, or rather, the version of the peace plan that was developed in Miami and which, indeed, Volodymyr Zelensky has not yet seen. From London, the president will travel to Brussels, where in the evening he will have a one-on-one meeting with NATO Secretary-General Mark Rutte, as well as trilateral talks with the President of the European Council, Antonio Costa, and the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. And it's important to note here that Zelensky really hasn't seen the peace plan with all the additions that were made after Witkoff's visit to Moscow and after 3 days of negotiations between the Ukrainian delegation and the Americans in Miami. Trump didn't lie here, and let me briefly remind you of the chronology. On December 2, President Trump's special representative Steve Witkoff and son-in-law Jared Kushner met Sputnik Putin in Moscow. These negotiations to resolve Russia's war against Ukraine lasted more than 5 hours, but they were unable to find a compromise on a peace plan. Meanwhile, the Kremlin said Putin did not reject the United States proposal during negotiations. But that's always how the Russians act, it's their favorite tactic. They say, we're not rejecting the peace plan, but it doesn't suit us, and interpret it as you wish. Well, unfortunately, Trump interprets it exactly as if Putin is ready for peace. After that, a whole series of meetings took place in Miami between the Ukrainian and American delegations, where Kyiv was supposed to be given full information about what was discussed during the negotiations in Russia. Already on December 6th, Zelensky had a 2-hour phone conversation with Witkoff and Kushner, during which they discussed territorial issues and security guarantees. And here we are today. Before his visit to London, the Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine, Rostem Umerov, stated that today he would inform President Zelensky of all the details of the peace plan negotiations in the United States and show him all the documents. According to sources from Umerov's team, the Ukrainian leader will only review the amendments to the document today. Due to the risk of eavesdropping, this cannot be done over the phone. After all, we see that many people are listening in, and they will only be able to talk in person today. After the leaks of Witkoff and Ushakov's talks, all negotiation participants have now gone completely underground. Moreover, sources claim that Umerov brought back not just one peace plan from the United States, but several documents at once. And it's still unclear why there are so many draft documents, not just one. Let me remind you, earlier Putin's side said they discussed the peace plan and 4 other separate documents. And after Trump's attacks on Zelensky, The Guardian directly writes, Trump's interference in the issue of resolving Russia's war against Ukraine has only made the situation worse. Quote, President of Russia, Vladimir Putin is systematically destroying his country. His war against Ukraine, which he himself started, is an economic, financial, geopolitical, and human catastrophe for Russia, which is getting worse every day for reasons that remain unclear. President of the United States Donald Trump, actually another national threat, offered him a lifeline last week, but Putin rejected the offer. These two fools deserve each other, writes The Guardian. A peace deal was on the table in Moscow that, generally speaking, rewarded Russia's aggression by handing over large parts of Ukrainian land, put Kyiv's independence at risk, and controlled its defense against any future attacks. If Trump's agreement had been pushed through, it would have split the United States and Europe, undermined NATO, boosted Russia's economy, and likely overthrown Volodymyr Zelensky's government. These are the key goals of Russia's war. But Putin, suffering from neo-imperial fantasies and a mania to go down in history, said no. He believes he can get everything, all of it, and even more, so... Write your opinions and conclusions in the comments under this episode. Subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and don't forget to like. That's all for now. Take care. Goodbye all.